Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to associate tasks with a project. So hop into our artisan Finger shell first, and let's first get the user for which we created a project in the previous video. And for me, that was the user with ID 1. And to double check this, we should be allowed to see the projects of the user like this. And indeed, for this user, we have a project called University. So let's create a task now using the task factory. And we're going to create a task for this user using the creator relation that is set up in the task model, and create the task. Now you don't see it here, but this task has no project ID set for it. So let's double check in our database. And indeed, for this task, and actually all the tasks, so mind the title here, that is this record, there is no project ID field. So this task is not related to a project. So if we now move over to Postman, to the update task request, and we are going to have task with ID 2, fill the authorization header, and try to set the project ID to 1, then you'll notice that this will not update the project ID because the project ID is not fillable. So let's move to our task model and add the project ID there. And besides this, we also don't include the project ID in the validated data or the validation rules of the task request. So even though this is here now, it is not part of the validated data in the task controller. So let's go to the update task request class and add a validation rule for the project ID. Now, because this field is nullable in our database, we also allow to set the project ID to null. And next we want to check whether the project ID exists in our database. So we're going to use the exists validation rule, which requires two parameters. The first is the table in which to check for an existing value, and the second is the column. So with this, we're going to check whether the ID that is passed exists in the projects table. And if we now move back to Postman, we should be good to go. So let's try to set this project ID of 1 for task with ID 2. And now we see indeed that in our response, the project ID has been updated to a value of 1. So this does seem to work fine, but it does have a minor flaw. So to demonstrate this, let's move back into our artisan Finger shell and create a new project using the projects factory. So if I now create this project and update the project with the new ID, which is 2, not 3, and send the request, then you now see that I can set this project ID to 2. Now this is a bit odd because the creator of the project is someone completely different from the creator of the task. And obviously that's not a good thing. We don't want to allow users to blindly attach tasks to other people's projects. So what we want to do is check whether the creator of the task was the same as the creator of the project. And for this we need to write a custom validation rule. And therefore we cannot use this string syntax, but need to use an array for the validation rules. So first we're going to have the nullable validation rule, and second we're going to add the exist validation rule again, but we're going to need to filter that on the creator ID. So again, the parameters are going to be projects for the table, ID for the column, and in here we're gonna add a closure. And the query will be filtered on the creator ID. And for this, we'll use the ID of the currently signed in user using the auth facade. Now, if we check again, so let's create a new project. This project has ID 3. Move back to Postman. If we now try to set the project ID to 3, then we see that the project ID is invalid. Now we do have one project created for this user. This is the project with ID 1. If we try to set this, then this does work. And also the project ID that we used before is not valid anymore. So that's working fine. Now let's copy over this logic to the stored task request such that we can set the project for newly created task and import the classes that we need for this. All right, now with this we're all good to go. I'll see you in the next video.